Slua Cheshire Tonic Dum Tea, the Var Wem Ool on Cheshire. Chart the Loch me on the Warach, o Hart na Shea Shalonach.
I would have always heard that a really important poet or bard lived in Dochern. I've an impression of him that he had no fear. He was a bard from a long line of bards, and he had patronage from some of the most important families in Ireland. So he thought they had his back. He had strong views on the culture. He had strong views on the various occupations that Ireland had. And he had no problem in his satires or his poetry discussing his opinions on that. He really wanted for the Irish people to be strong and to hold their values and not to adopt the ways of the other countries.
It was a long time, seemingly, since a bit of crow's produce had entered their bodies, the twice three whom I have mentioned. I was able, 'tis a pity, to bring them from death to life.
Poetry has a wider connotation in Gaelic Ireland. Okay, it's part of the legal system as much as it is part of the education system. The legal status of the nobility in Ireland is based on praise and satire. It had legal and financial consequences if you were proved to have broken your honour or your word. I don't think they'd be too impressed with the situation in Ireland in these days. Yeah.
Must needs they drink my milk, so great was their thirst from the dry bread. I in want and they in necessity. I am in a strait between the two. It is hard for me to repress these verses, yet it is sinful for me to make them. Ye wallach is far on air, ki be tillis of achir. Mor the air me on slew a Cheshire ni dool gon e de hinchin.
The form of poetry that the poets were trained to write or to recite was called Don Giroch. So it would take about 12 years to learn how to produce Don Giroch. And some of them, it's not all praise poems, some of them are historical knowledge, some of it's geographical knowledge. William Butler Yeats had expressed it several times that his dream was to recreate the Bardic, what he called Bardic chant or the Bardic arts. And he was very aware of the idea of the fact that had been lost. We would now probably decide that Don Giroch was much closer in delivery to rap than it is to anything else. Chant and other things don't quite, the word in English doesn't quite get there. But the more you look at how the delivery, there's descriptions from the 17th and 18th century of the bards delivering Don Giroch and how they keep pace with the harp, which gives a steady rhythm, and also the structure of the poetry, which is called syllabic poetry. In other words, it's strictly based on how many syllables per line. Don Giroch could only be delivered with a harper, only the harp.
The first that I saw, he was the best equipped of the band, a youth whose vest was not worth more than a groat, one whom feasting or gaming never impoverished.
They had ferocious power. If they condemned you, you were condemned. Everybody would believe what they said, and they would go to no lengths to make sure that you close your mouth. They were always a threat to the establishment.
Although Ireland had writing, and we now think that writing is the only way to tell the truth, Ireland looked at it the other way around, that only the poems and the spoken word told the truth, and that anyone could write anything in a book. But you would believe the poems more, because the intricate nature of the verses in Don Giroch would mean that if you tried to change it, the rhyme would throw out, if you know what I mean. So it was more trusted.
The second man, as I found coming in front of the company, was a miserable fellow whose marrow had gone from him. I shall not leave him out of the reckoning. The munition of the third wretch was an old javelin and an untempered gapped axe, he and his markings of an axe in an encounter. I pity such battle equipment. The equipment of the fourth fellow, who flux-smitten marched with them, 4 shafts that never knocked a splinter out of a target slung across his rump.
I was researching this theory they had that the castle was going to fall on 6 red-headed O'Haras. And my grandmother was O'Hara, and she lived there all her life, and it was only 100 metres across the river to the castle. She wouldn't go near it. No O'Hara, red-headed or not, would go near it because they believed it. So I was curious about that, and it was that curiosity that led me to examine something about Tadhg Dal, and that's when I found out how Tadhg Dal was tied up with this mythology that would fall on 6 red-headed O'Haras. In 1591, Tadhg Dal O'Huigin was murdered in Bannadabbey, and he was murdered by the people that controlled that area of the country, the red-headed O'Haras. That was their nicknames. And that's where the curse came from. So that was what I found out, you know.
There's a very sad story of how Tadhg Dal O'Huigin met such a terrible end. He was slain by the O'Haras. He wrote a piece of satire after the O'Haras had come and looted at his property. They did not anticipate him writing about it. And when he had the courage to write about it, they came and ambushed him, and he was slain by them and his wife and one of his children, and there was just one boy survived. They cut his tongue out and left him to die, bleed to death. It was very savage, but they wanted to make their point. He could not speak. He could not say the truth about what they had done.
At the heels of the 4 others comes the 5th rogue, in a short smock, not worth a groat. I do not think his mantle was any better. The likeness of a fellow not worth a flesh worm was along with the 5, a gaunt, transparent sort of fellow. He was a poor commodity on inspection. I beseech God who shed his blood, since it is but decay for them to be alive, it is scarcely to be called living, that none may slay the troop of 6.